This is sort of more of an informal session to get to know each other, get to know the program. I'd like to be the first to welcome you to the Founder Institute Silicon Valley Summer 2019 Orientation. Let's give a round of applause. So this is actually my favorite session out of all of the 14 sessions that we go over, even graduation. Graduation's up there, but orientation is the best because everyone's coming in, they're like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, they're ready to take over the world. And it's really, there's a lot of magic that happens in the session tonight. So let me give you just a very quick agenda. So first we're going to go over introductions. There's a lot of people in the room. Some of you may have brought your co-founder. We'll go over some of the things like that through what we call the basics. Just a quick presentation, quick 50 slides of things that you guys need to know about the program. And then we're going to break everyone into working groups. So you've got the email about the different working groups. So we'll split up into different rooms so you guys can get to know each other, talk to each other, learn about each other, and most importantly, select the working group presidents. And then we'll do a post-session networking session at a place called Antonio's Nut House. Who's been to the Nut House here? Okay. I know you have, Jordan. So the Nut House is a famous bar. It was featured in The Social Network. It's basically a historical landmark. And so you'll see, we've been going there for the past 6 years or so, every Wednesday night after the session, and you'll see people like Elon Musk or Jeff Weiner from LinkedIn, and it's kind of like this little dive bar where you never would suspect people like that would hang out, but it's a really, really cool spot. So we've only gotten kicked out of there one time, and we're able to kind of go to these. It's like, time for you to lay your hair down, talk to the mentors, talk to each other, talk to us, and really develop relationships and work on your businesses. So why don't we start off with quick introductions. So my name is Ryan Micheletti. I've emailed or called probably everyone here. I've pretty much met everyone. And my role at Founder Institute is Director of Global Operations. So what that means is we run this program in 180 cities around the world. And in each of those cities, we have a director team, like myself and Mike and Scout in the back. So they're actively working on the program and helping people with building their companies. And so I work with those teams to make sure that they're running the program well and that they're building great companies as a result. And so previous to F, I've been there for about almost 5 years now. I can't believe crazy how time flies. And this is my 8th semester working as a director of the program. So in my previous life, I kind of got my entrepreneurship journey was kicked off building a multi-million-dollar security company nationally. And then I also co-founded an accelerator for military veterans called VetTech. And over the last 7.5 years now, we've helped over 100 military veterans raise capital, build their companies, connect to corporate partners, utilizing both the Founder Institute network, but also our network at the Plug and Play Tech Center. I'd love to introduce Mike Supervici.
Hello everyone, my name is Mike. I don't think it's cool. I should appreciate it. So I basically manage the Founder Institute portfolio of companies. So once companies graduate, my team and I take over, and we basically are with the companies for the rest of their company's lives, and we help them raise money. We basically help any sort of thing that you may need, basically scale your business, right? Marketing, sales, product development. That's what we're there to do. I also help. I was looking at the numbers. About 150 companies raise money every single year. Usually their first round, sometimes their second round of financing. That's what I do at the Founder Institute. But prior to FY, I'm actually a graduate. I actually went through the program right when the Founder Institute started back in 2010. I built a company. It was a really helpful experience for me. The mentors became my first angel investors. Basically, kind of been through all the steps that you're about to embark on, or have already started going on, and built a team and all that stuff, got traction and all that. So I did that for basically 5 years, and then the founder of the company, Aresti, brought me in-house to basically scale out our entire portfolio success team. So that's what I'm here to do. So basically the best way to use me is that I can basically help you, give you strategic advice at pretty much at all stages of your business, because I've been there myself, and I just kind of see from a high level, our portfolio is about 3,500 companies going on, probably will reach 4,000 by the end of the year, right? So I've probably seen every iteration of most ideas. It's rare that I see an idea that I've actually never seen. And so I could probably give you some thoughts about kind of what things have worked and what things have not worked for those founders, right? So feel free to use me in office hours and things like that.
Awesome. And last but not least, in the back, Mr. Scout Tweety.
Hey guys, good to see you. Been with F5 for 3 years. Actually, 3 years about a month ago. And I've worked with a lot of startups. I actually divvy up the world with Brian. We're in over 170 chapters. So a lot of chapter management going on. I've worked with a lot of startups as well, but none as fun as the Founder Institute.
Awesome.
All right.
So we'd like to hear from you, and you know, there's 35-ish people in the room, so let's keep these like super short, like 2 to 3 sentences, so it doesn't take 2 hours to get through everyone. We've already looked at a lot of your backgrounds as part of the admissions process, so this is mainly for everyone else in the room who you haven't had a chance to meet yet. So, you know, just kind of quick name, background, what you're working on, and really like why you're here and what you want to try and get out of the program, so we know how to kind of custom tailor things to fit your needs. So processes that we've laid out. Now I'll get into the infrastructure and the basis of how the program works. But I mean, you know, you're coming into probably the top program in the world for Founder Institute. It's really tough, right? But if you're serious and if you're passionate and you're willing to do the work, you will not only succeed, but you'll thrive. And that's our job. And so if you're going to put in the work, we're going to put in the work as well, and we'll help you make a great company. You know, we've helped companies ranging from quantum computing. We're looking for companies and doing drug research to find new molecular structures of drugs and potentially selling it to pharmaceuticals to reduce the billions of dollars that are spent every year on that research, to space companies. So there are a couple of you that actually have space backgrounds. So a few weeks ago, we got some news that one of our graduates from a year and a half ago just got a year ago,
Yeah.
got a huge NASA contract. He's part of this $90 million contract with NASA with a few other companies, and he's literally building the moon rover that's going to be on the moon.
Wow.
So 180 cities plus
And
the
he's going to
moon.
be on the moon next year, right?
Wow.
So think about it, like, no, like coming in here with like an idea, and 2 years later, their rover's not going to be on the moon. It's just-
That's wonderful.
It's cool.
So we're here to help, and this is basically what we call the basics, because a lot of you have done your homework and looked online and kind of know everything, but sometimes it helps just to set the expectations and put everything up front. So, you know, as you mentioned a few times, we're the largest pre-seed accelerator in the world. So we've helped launch over 3,600 companies in 180 cities around the world with a mentor network of over 13,000 mentors, and actually it's close to 14,000 now. So if you add all that enterprise value together, it's north of 20 billion, it's probably closer to 25 billion right now. And our mission is to empower communities of talented and motivated people to build enduring and impactful companies. And so what that means is, like, you've heard some people who are maybe like trying to solve the plastic epidemic, right? Or maybe you're trying to like balance out and create opportunities for female immigrants. So there's a lot of different people and backgrounds here that we think we can help. We're very, very founder friendly. We're founder first, but that doesn't mean that this is going to be an easy problem. And I like to share this story, particularly with the Silicon Valley program as we kick it off, because I think it sets the why Founder Institute exists. You know, some of you know and have met our CEO, Deo Resi, and some of you might know that he's also best friends with Elon Musk. It had nothing to do with getting the moon contract, but it sure probably helps a little bit to have him as a friend. And he told me this story one time about how when they were in college, they were college roommates, and Elon was offered a job opportunity. This is pre-PayPal, pre-Tesla, all this stuff, right? He was offered a job opportunity working on smart missile technology for the government. Sounds pretty cool, right? You get a job, you get good benefits, kind of a balanced lifestyle, working on something interesting. And so he was at a fork in the road where he could have taken the government job route, or he could take the entrepreneurship route. And the entrepreneurship route is undoubtedly like 100 times harder than that. And so fortunately, he was swayed towards entrepreneurship, and as a result, we have companies that are literally changing the face of the world today, right? Tesla, SpaceX, Solar City, The Boring Company, Hyperloop, right? These are all things that hopefully will be benefiting humanity. And so we know that, you can just turn on the news, that humanity is facing big problems and big challenges. And we also know that you can't rely on the government to solve those problems. It's up to the individuals who are building companies and building technologies to basically bring their vision and their dreams to life to help move humanity forward. So we believe that entrepreneurs can fix some of the world's most pressing problems, and that's sort of the genesis of how Founder Institute got started. So there's like some more information stuff I'm happy to share with the genesis story, but Basically, we wanted to kickstart the global startup revolution, not just in Silicon Valley, but in every major city around the world. And so 10 years later, we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. We've done that for over 3,600 founders across those cities. So here's some basic questions, right? And when you're looking at your startup, there's all sorts of different companies. Like I've built service-based companies, I've built product-based companies, right? This is very much a product type focused curriculum and program. So some things you want to ask yourself, right? Can you change 1 million lives, right? Can you create 100 jobs and can you run it for 10 years? There's a saying that if you want to make $1 billion, you need to affect 1 billion people's lives, right? And so we're all about making that positive impact. So we help everyone in what's called the pre-seed stage. So this is basically like before you've raised a significant round of funding, usually your seed, so pre-seed.
This is basically before strong product market fit. It's
Right.
a better way to look at it.
So what we've done is we've developed 2 tracks in the program, right? Because as you saw, some people here are at the idea stage where they need validation, and other people are here and they already have some customers and they're looking for rapid traction and growth and funding, right? So here's how it's sort of broken down. I don't think anyone in the back can see this, so let me just kind of break it down for you. So we have something called the standard track, or we call it the launch phase, where you're going to validate your idea, you're going to do a bunch of customer development, you're going to really work through the mechanics of it and make sure that before you go and incorporate a company and try and spend a bunch of time raising money, that you're able to actually launch the company because the mechanics are there and it's something that people want, right? Slightly later than that is what we call the advanced track or the traction phase, where it's more focused on customers, getting customers, acquiring revenue, and then also creating a fast track to what we call our funding lab program. And Mike, maybe you want to talk a little bit about funding lab?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do for all graduates that are ready to fundraise, we basically hold your hand through the entire fundraising process. It's a very structured approach. It's virtual. We basically give you weekly sprints to do, and it's super successful. Over 90% of the companies that finish the program raise money. One of the cool things that we do here in Silicon Valley, however, particularly with companies that are starting to get a lot of traction throughout the program, is that we generally kind of shortcut that process. And so it often overlaps when the funding lab program starts and the actual program, the FI program kind of ends. And so basically we create this little overlap where we basically start fast tracking you right into funding lab if you're ready to fundraise. One of the worst things that a company can do is to try to go fundraise before they're actually ready to fundraise. Because once you get a no from an investor, it's a no forever, right? So you basically burn out your network to get to this person, you got to know. So that's part of something we will work on together to ensure it, but this is one of the cool things that we do, and pretty much every single cohort we do this, and every single cohort we have companies that raise money pretty quickly right out of this program, just because we basically overlap this, right? So,
Yeah, we've had founders who've come into the program already raising $700K. They join, they help kickstart their traction, they start to get a lot of growth, and then they join Funding Lab and they close their round fairly quickly. And so just to kind of go back to this slide, so the core program that everyone here is in right now is the normal Founder Institute program. When you graduate, there's a series of perks and benefits that are free for everyone who's a part of the alumni network around the world. One of which is the we call Founder Lab, but Founder Lab's kind of the overarching umbrella brand. Within Founder Lab, there is Funding Lab, which is specifically to raising capital. And so everyone here who graduates the program is eligible to apply to Founder Lab. There are some criteria that we basically put in place just to make sure you're ready. Because as Mike said, it's one of the worst things you can do. Because it's not only just burning out your network, but you're just wasting your time, right? Instead of spending like 3 months building your company, you spent 3 months trying to network and raise capital, and you just weren't ready. So how do you create a super efficient process around that? And so here's just a couple of the requirements. I don't know if you want to run through them real quick.
yeah, basically these are just the basic requirements to raise money right now. So if you're not exclusively working on your business, you shouldn't be pitching investors. So some of you I know still have a job and things like that. That's not going to work because you're essentially shifting the risk onto the investor. Right? So that's number one. You have to have a team, right? Because fundraising is a full-time job for one of the people on your team. And so you can't allow the business to slow down while you're fundraising, because in your second meeting with investors, like, how's your traction? Oh, it went down, right? Like, you don't want that. So you need to have a team, right? So those are some of the requirements. And we also look and see like kind of like what you're building and kind of try to match that with market conditions and to figure out if you're ready or not. So we'll talk about this more, and there's an entire fundraising session in the program, and we'll discuss this in detail.
So, as I mentioned at the beginning of this session, the Founder Institute is hard because we know that building a company is harder. And we actually know, and we've taken tons and tons of data in from every city around the world where we operate. And the Founder Institute, it's sort of like the dojo, right? It's the lab, it's where you kind of learn some things and you can try things out, talk to mentors, build your network, in a safe environment where if you fail or if you screw up or something happens, right, it's not necessarily gonna negatively impact your business, right? And so a lot of the data shows that performance in the program directly correlates to performance outside of the program. So everything in Founder Institute is sort of like a test, right? We're looking at how to make you a stronger founder. And so even though the program's hard, right, you're committing like 20 to 25 hours a week sort of minimum between the sessions and the homework and all of that, we're here to help you along the way. So we'll be doing office hours, we'll be setting up meetings weekly. The program sessions are basically going to be every Wednesday night. To this week we have sort of a double session where tonight is orientation, tomorrow is vision and validation. It's a power week, I know. We'll be going to the bar both nights, so tie your shoes and get ready to go. And tomorrow we actually have a really great session. So we have Aaron Bawley, who was the founder and former CEO, but now chairman of Udemy, one of the unicorns from Founder Institute. He's been a consistent mentor for us for the last 3 years, I would say, once he kind of stepped down from that role. He just raised a Series B for his second company, so he's going to be talking about vision and validation. Usually what we do is we'll have 3 mentors all do 3 different presentations, but just from doing this for the last 8 years, we know that Aaron tends to take up more of like a 40-minute presentation rather than 20 minutes. And we'd also like to spend more, since there's so many people in the program, like one of the best things you can do is just kind of rapid fire pitch and just really refine the message, and also listen to what other people are pitching and how the mentors are responding to it. So we want to try and get as many of you to pitch tomorrow as possible. So we said, okay, instead of doing 3 presentations, we'll still have 3 mentors giving feedback, but we'll only do 2 presentations and increase the number of hot seats, which is the founder pitches. So high impact businesses can require easily 70 hours per week, and arguably like that's relatively low, right? I think Adele spends easily 100 hours a week, sometimes 120. And so some of you have already experienced this, maybe in other jobs, but everything relies on you as the founder, right? As soon as you stop moving, the company stops moving. And so we're asking you for 20 to 25 hours of work a week, right? Here's a quote. This is from Ernest Yap. He's an FI alumni. Founder Institute pushed me to levels I didn't know I was capable of. The program is tough. You'll grow. You're going to get a ton of value out of it. Tori Smith, who actually was one of our recent grads from the last program, he said that 4 months ago, I had an idea. Now I have a company, 4 employees, 3 working prototypes, and $200K in funding for a hardware company. And people who are doing hardware know how hard that is. And so he's doing something pretty spectacular, but we can get into that later. So the reality is that greater than 60% of you won't graduate the program. But that's not necessarily bad, right? Because you're here to learn. Not everyone is meant to launch a company, and it's not even about you as the founder. It's just maybe the idea is not that strong. Right? And so we believe in honest feedback. We'll go over sort of our rating system and what we believe, but you're going to get sort of the hard truth fast, and it's up to you to iterate and to move and to adapt and be able to build a business around that, right? And you're always going to run into people who are naysayers and say, no, you can't do that, and that's as a founder, you're basically just under constant conflict and duress that you just have to push forward through. And so there are 2 main reasons why people drop out of the program. I'd say the number one is people tend to fall behind, and that's okay, right? Because like it's a lot of work, right? We're here to help, and the reality is that if you can't spend 20 hours a week on a program, right, there's no way that you're going to be able to spend 70 hours a week launching the company. For those of you who are at the idea stage, our goal is really to get you to the point where you quit your day job and go full time, right? That's when we know we've been successful, right? That's what we're driving for. And some of you may or may not be ready. You don't have to quit your job as a requirement for the program, but it's definitely something where like our job is to get you to that point where you're all in, right? The second reason why people drop out is poor ratings, right? So you might get consistent poor feedback from the mentors. Maybe you're doing Facebook for dogs or whatever, and you think it's a great idea, but every mentor is like, no, it's not a good idea. And basically, like you go through this, and you have to maintain a certain rating threshold to stay in the program. Now we don't just drop people out, we give you special assignments or what we call epic sprints, where it's basically a condensed amount of work within a limited time period to help you with the deficits in your company, right? So if you have like some idea that you need to find a co-founder or build a project, do these things, Mike and I kind of we look at your company, look at you, and we say, okay, what's the one thing they need to go out and do right now to then like get you to the next level so that you can continue on that success path. So the good news is that if you drop out before the third session, so that would be next Wednesday, a week from today with customer development, you get a full refund. And then if you drop out after that session, you don't get a refund, but you get to re-enroll in any semester around the world for free for up to a year. Right, so whether you're here in Silicon Valley or San Francisco or down in SoCal, wherever it is around the world, you can join it for free. We put that course fee towards it. I highly recommend if you walk away from this session and you're like, hey, I'm not really sure if I want to build a company, like drop out, get the refund. Like seriously, just like we're here to help you and you'll learn a lot, but like we're here to build serious companies with serious founders. And it's relatively expensive, but you'll get this back. You'll get the course fee back just based upon the legal deal that we have with Perkins Coie, which we'll go into in a moment here.
So this isn't school, okay? You're building a company. You're not here to learn about building companies. You're actually going to be building a company like right now. Okay? So just be very clear about that.
So the good news is, even though it's hard, we know you can do it, right? Our admissions test is kind of scarily accurate. Adeo says it's about 85% accurate at predicting entrepreneurial success, and 50,000 people around the world have taken this. So everyone in this room has taken it and passed, which is great for you. Congratulations. And basically, what we're looking for is like, is there a correlation with like your background, your skills, and sort of your capacity as an entrepreneur to make you a good entrepreneur, right? And so, because we have 3,600 founders around the world, 50,000 people who have taken the test. Right, we were able to kind of back test some of the data and see like, what are some of the traits and what are some of the things that make for a great entrepreneur. And some of the things that we look for is fluid intelligence and openness. Those are two of the big ones that indicate your success level. And basically, fluid intelligence is your ability to learn things quickly, as opposed to crystallized intelligence. And then your openness measures like how open are you to new ideas. So the underlying thesis behind that is that if you're smart and you can learn quickly and you're also open to new ideas, that means that you're able to adapt, right? And everyone knows Darwinism, right? You got to adapt to overcome, and entrepreneurship is like cutting edge stuff. You got to adapt or you're going to die. And so we know how to help you succeed through this program. We've run hundreds of programs since 2009. We already went over some of the stats: 850 million raised, 40 acquisitions. Here are some success stories. I mentioned Aaron's coming tomorrow night. This deck is used all over the world, so we have some from Vietnam, Singapore, LA, San Diego, Paris. In fact, 20 or 25%? 20 or 25% of all Series A companies in the country of Vietnam are FI grads. So it's just to give you an idea of like how impactful and how large the network is. Some of you are from Hong Kong or LA. Like we have programs and mentors in those areas. So upon graduation, you can tap into those networks. So if you're moving to New York for whatever reason, right, we can help introduce you to the leaders there who are tapped into that entrepreneurship ecosystem, even if you're just visiting. And you also have kind of the ability to go to any program session around the world once you graduate. So you may see some of our grads from previous programs just pop in to say hi. I've invited them to come out to the bar with us every Wednesday night. So you may meet some people who have gone through the program, and they may be able to give you some tips that can help. And so here's basically how to leverage FI. Here's how we can help you succeed. So the first is help each other, right? Something very magical happens when you get a group of people, like-minded individuals, all working towards a similar goal, and they help each other, right? The world's already full of conflict and people that are trying to tear people down, and entrepreneurship kind of gets a bad rap sometimes. Anyone hear of like people stealing ideas, like Mark Zuckerberg or any of that, right? That's not us, right? That's not FI, right? We're here to help you succeed, and that's why we have the Equity Collective, because we know that if there's a financial incentive to help you succeed, that's going to go a long ways. So rule number one is like be friends with each other, play nicely, help each other through the program. The stronger the bond you have with your teammates, the more likely you are to have a successful outcome. Because as you'll see in the program, things are going to get tough. You're going to have to lean on each other for help, right? Hey, does anyone know a teacher over at this school who I can like get some feedback on my idea, right? Or does anyone know like someone who's like a B2B sales expert, right? Leverage each other's networks and strengths to help you succeed. The other thing is build relationships, not just with each other and the directors, but also with the mentors. We have a huge mentor list just because we've been operating the program for the last 10 years here in Silicon Valley. And so, you know, Mike has some like best practices that you could probably share from the alumni network.
Yeah, first of all, you should go to the bar. I mean, you know, okay, because a lot of times these mentors go to the bar too. Actually, pretty much every session they do. And it's a really good opportunity for you to just kind of meet with them in a very casual environment, right? And so that's a great way to kind of do that. And then what I would also recommend is with every mentor that comes out, you should try to make it a habit to try to meet them outside the session, if possible, right? Time permitting. And one of the things I really, really recommend is that you basically have them come out and say, kill my idea or kill my go-to-market strategy or whatever, right? You want to just have like this raw like feedback. Because then you can start to learn kind of what the holes are, kind of the holes about how you're positioning your business to customers, to investors, to whatnot, right? So just think about that when you go out and try to do vendors.
That brings up a really good point too. During the hot seats, right, it's a chance for you to kind of listen twice as much as you speak, right? So like, you know, when you're pitching, it happens every time. It's super natural to kind of like, oh, wait, but like you don't understand this, or like, hey, like, you know, you try to answer questions and things like that. Don't do that. Just absorb the feedback and then listen to what they're saying and then adapt that for the next time. Because, you know, you only get, in the beginning, you'll do a 1-minute pitch, you'll then expand your 3-minute pitch, and then eventually your 5-minute pitch. And then usually there's a couple minutes of feedback, but every like second you're talking is 1 second that person who could have been about to say something super valuable for you, you missed that opportunity, right? So don't get defensive. Everyone here is going to screw up pitching. It's totally normal. You know, we've all been there. So just, you know, have fun with it, enjoy it, and take the feedback and learn from it. And then, you know, last and probably most importantly is you got to do the work, right? Like, we can help you. Like, we're giving you like this great platform to take advantage of, and we want you to like maximize it, right? So if you want to go out and meet with every single mentor, like, please do. The vast majority of people probably won't do that because time and there's lots of limiting factors, right? But the bottom line is like, we can't build the company for you. We're not here to be the CEO and founder. We're here to help you and guide you. But if you really want to do this, you got to do the work, and it requires a lot of hard work. But the good news is that you know, we're giving this global platform to help you succeed with it. So here's how the program is structured. Most of you probably can't see this, but here are all the different sessions from orientation through equity and funding, and then the graduation. So everything begins tonight. Tonight there's actually an assignment that people have to complete for tomorrow. And every week we're going to meet on a Wednesday. I think we have one break. I think it's like the week after the 4th of July. You can see you have access to all the sessions. They're all going to be here except for graduation. So just make sure it's on your calendar. We start at 6:30 sharp. You'll always have food here. And at each of the session, we're basically going to start off with pitches. At every session, you're going to be able to get feedback from the mentors. They're going to talk about the subject of the evening. And one thing Mike and I want to try and do this time is actually leave more room for Q&A towards the end. Usually it was like, you know, 15, 20 minutes at the most. But I think, you know, it's great to like learn and hear from the mentors, but it's almost better to just say like, hey, you know, my name is Ryan, I'm working on this company, I have this problem, what do you recommend, right? And get that like laser focused feedback. So we're going to try and increase the amount of Q&A towards the end of the sessions. So throughout the program, you're going to have weekly deliverables that you got to keep up with and deliver every single week, because the program builds on top of each other. And this is something that I've seen that's pretty common. But like, you know, vision and validation, right? You're going to go through this week, you're going to talk about your vision, right? Well, Ryan, I already worked on my vision. I already know what it is. It's like, okay, great. It should be a really easy assignment. Just do the work, right? You got to trust the process because I guarantee you that 14 weeks from now, you're going to be light years ahead of where you are now if you were just kind of mosey around and do it yourself. So it's a process. Let it unfold, right? And just do the work. Every week you'll be doing customer development. We've actually built in leadership and founder wellness into the curriculum. As some of you probably know, like founder wellness and mental health is a big topic And so since we teach entrepreneurship around the world, we wanted to include it. So there's some things in there about like, have you talked to your spouse about, launching the company? Is there a realistic expectation here? Did you tell them about the $10,000 you took out of your So it's all normal stuff, which is help to make you a strong founder, right? And then as you kind of get further along, like, start doing sales and customer acquisition, a lot of product development, revenue, legal and IP is a big one. And then, it kind of ends with fundraising. And then once you kind of get into the Founder Lab stuff, that fundraising continues on the other side. So I already kind of mentioned the agenda. So, we'll do like a weekly update. You'll elect presidents, which we'll do tonight. That president will just give a super quick update about the working group. So, the good, the bad, the ugly, how's the team morale, how are things going? Literally like a 60-second update. We'll then go into the hot seats. We'll bring in 3 mentors every week to give you feedback. The first week, the first probably 4 weeks, we're just gonna do the 1-minute pitch. Part of that is because it's super important to just nail that and get that down. But the other part is that there's a lot of founders here, right? So it'd be too hard and it'd be a very long session to let all 35 of you pitch throughout the entire program for a 3-minute pitch.
If you can't do a 1-minute pitch, you won't be able to do a 3-minute pitch, right? And if you can't do a 3-minute pitch, you can't do a really good 5-minute pitch. So there's a lot of value in learning how to do your 1-minute pitch. Your 1-minute pitch is what gets you the meeting anyway, right? So you need to be able to do this really, 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 really well. So we're going to be dealing with that for a long time, 5 weeks or so.
And I'll just pre-apologize for it right now. We're going to cut you off at 1 minute, so it's going to be like a hard cutoff. Again, no offense, no hard feelings, but that's just, we have to keep everything moving. And also, you'll kind of know exactly where you stopped, right?
That's a good point. So, a lot of people are here from various different countries and things like that. So, the reason we're very direct in our feedback is because that cuts through all the bullshit, right? It just cuts through it. And there's one way you can look at it and say, oh, it's direct, like this person means badly, but it's not the point. It's just that you get what you need to get out of that, right? So we're not going to be like, oh, well, you could do a lot better job here, blah, blah, blah. Or in my emails, you're not going to see smiley emojis. No, it's like, look, this slide is bad, or your revenue model is bad, and you need to do this, and that, right? And so it's direct because that cuts through all the stuff, right? So just don't take offense to that. Just take it in and just run with it.
Thick skins. So there'll be about an hour of hot seats each week. In the beginning, we'll try to get through as many as we can. And then we'll go into the mentor presentations. Usually it's like a 15 to 20-minute presentation from each mentor related to the subject of the evening. They create it themselves. We don't give them content create. We just say, hey, do a talk on best practices for customer development, right? They have to actually create it and do that. And the reason for that is because you get that diversity of thought and you can kind of triangulate from the different presentations what works for you. Because there's this opinion cloud out there where people give you an opinion on your company and maybe that mentor is wrong, right? 2 of the mentors might give you a 4 and the other one might give you a 1, right? Are the 4s right or is the 1 right? I don't know, it's up to you as the CEO to figure it out, right? So this is all meant to just help guide you along that journey. So after the mentor talks, we'll do Q&A, and then we usually do the post-session social at Antonio's Nut House. That's totally optional, but as Mike said, and this is another kind of weird data point for you, there is a correlation between the founders that go to the bar and the founders that are successful and graduate the program. It's not the beer. So hot seats, we talked about this a little bit. We have a special rating system. Mike, do you want to fill them in?
Yeah, so you're going to have in general a panel of 2 to 3 mentors here. They're going to be rating your pitch from 1 to 5 with no 3s. The reason there's no 3s is because we don't want people to take the easy way out. It's either going to be really good or it's going to be really bad. So 5 means that the mentor's willing to write a check and invest in your business right now. That's on the first there. 4 means that they're willing to potentially advise you in your company. 2 means that it's really unclear what the value prop is and it's unclear what the business is, but at least it has potential. And 1 means I have no idea what this is. You should probably just give up and go, basically. Right? And so that's basically the scale.
Yeah. So weekly deliverables. So every week you'll basically the structure that I would recommend is we have the session Wednesday nights. Everyone comes, has a good time, learn a lot of great stuff. And then you go home and you have to meet with your working group a couple times during the week. Totally optional for what times. You're going to set that up tonight. But you have to meet twice, right? Once in person, once virtually. You can meet in person before the sessions as well. Sometimes people are commuting from all sorts of areas, so it becomes difficult. We also know it's summer, so things can get a little hectic, so we understand. And then like I wouldn't wait to the last minute to do the work, right? Because it's gonna be like, even if you've done it before, maybe it's 10 hours. If it's brand new for you, like it's probably like closer to 15 hours of work. And so you don't want to wait to the last minute. It's meant to be done a little bit at a time, and anything that requires someone else to respond, like, hey, go out and meet with some mentors or go and do this, you'll want to do that early, right? Just to make sure that there's enough time to respond and coordinate schedules and do things like that. So there's some stuff that's kind of like personal work that you can get done that's not relying on other people, but there are some things that you'll have to do yourself and actually like depend on other people as well. Office hours, so we're going to set up office hours with you every week. We have some slots available. We'll send out an email later on today with like the available times. It's mainly going to be Mike, myself, and maybe a couple other mentors who pop in and out of the session. So we'll send out an update with all the information probably before the session tomorrow. And then I mentioned the epic sprints earlier. So these are super. You're going to hate us when we give you one, but then 3 days later when it's done, you're going to love us and you're going to tell us how awesome it was and how helpful it was for your company. Usually you'll probably get at least 1, maybe 2 epic sprints per semester. It's basically about 25 to 30 hours of work condensed into 4 days. And there's a reason for that, but there's some things that happen kind of behind the scenes, like when you're doing this, that are really, really important. And I'm happy to kind of dive into a little bit later, but the good news is that the first couple weeks you're landing on your feet, you're trying to get calibrated with everything, and the epic sprints are super, super helpful. We had one person, Usmana, he got like, what was it, like 8 LOIs or something in 3 days, right? It's like going from like, I have this idea to I have 8 LOIs, right? What do you think that did to his? Yeah.
Close sales, we had a person that used that for his entire fundraising strategy, because he did a special assignment in 20 hours or whatever it was in 3 days.
So
that was a deal.
It's not busy work. This is hardcore stuff that is very, very powerful.
Ryan, I have a question. So epics.
Yeah.
Epic sprints are a sign that you're falling behind on your regular work, or
no? So we kind of give it to you as a rite of passage in Silicon Valley. In other places around the world, it's kind of like, hey, you're missing 2 assignments. Like, here's an epic sprint to catch up, right? Other things are like, hey, listen, you're about to go and incorporate a company, but like you still do not know how to go to market with this thing. Here's an epic sprint, get ready to go, and then like when you complete it, like you're basically like gaining skills in areas that you might have a deficit in, right? Not just for you personally, but also the business, right? So there's probably about 25 different ones that we can give out, but we do custom tailor it, right? So we don't just like spring play, like put special assignments to everyone. We actually like personally assign it based on what we think you need. So the working groups, I already mentioned, you meet twice a week, once in person, once virtually. I've seen out of the 8 programs that we've run, like the people that actually like take it seriously, but also have fun and build good relationships with their working group members, like not only do they do better with their companies, but it's also a much more fun experience, right? And that was particularly so with one group. And so lean on each other for support, right? That's why we have this network. And also, be respectful and keep things confidential. If someone's working on a company that your brother-in-law or whoever is also working on, like keep it confidential. And it's not that, there's this joke in the military that if there's a rule for something, it's because something happened pertaining to that. And usually it's a lot, it's more direct than this, but I think, we just dealt with an issue with someone in London where like he basically like shared some like information about a founder. Like it rarely happens, but don't do that. And it's not so much that it actually matters, because it doesn't. It's all about you to go out and execute and make the company happen. But just keep in mind, like you all kind of sign confidentiality clauses, like be respectful of each other's companies, but also, be direct and be helpful to help support each other. So here are just some basic requirements, actually the minimum requirements to complete the program. So the first is that every assignment has to be turned in, right, and complete, right? We'll be checking it every week. You'll have a business, you'll have plans and a strategy validated by the mentors based upon the scores, right? Everyone here will have a well-formed corporation. For those of you who are international, you don't necessarily have to incorporate in the US, but if you are in the US, you should be incorporating a Delaware C Corp, especially if you're planning to raise capital. we'll get into that a little bit later, unless you want to say something now.
Yeah, by well-formed, we mean a company, a corporation that is in a position to raise funding, right? So for those of you that have LLCs, that's probably not going to work. We're going to have to convert that to like a C corp because investors don't fund LLCs, right? And so we'll talk about that more, but that's what that means.
Formal advisory board, so it doesn't have to be advisors from our mentor pool, but just in general, you want to put some people on your advisory board to show credibility. You'll have a lot of progress with your product. You'll have a significant number of leads and customers. You'll have a strong team, or at least progress towards it. Some of you are looking for a co-founder, some of you already have one, but just building the team. Because you're always basically thinking of like team, product, traction, and like, is there money in the bank or funding, right? So as the CEO, you're constantly using those as your metrics. So you always want to be building your team, always want to be building the product, always get more traction in sales, and always make sure that there's money in the bank, right? Your pitch deck will be stellar. Some of you are going to have some really bad pitches and pitch decks, and that's totally okay, right? But if you're going to get one thing out of the program, it's going to be a stellar pitch deck. And you also have a very clear path to growth and scale, right? Through the process, you're going to have ups and downs. It's going to be a struggle, but stick with it. Do your best. Try and make progress, and just kind of put your head down and do the work, and you'll be really amazed at what you can get out of the program. So, even though this core program is only 14 weeks, Founders Who takes the approach of helping your company and being a part of your company for the rest of your life, right? Even though like 14 weeks, like it kind of seems like a lot, it's going to fly by, and then all of a sudden the program is going to be over. But we'll still meet with you for office hours. There's a ton of alumni perks that are listed here, as well as the Founder Lab program. We're still working with companies that graduated in the original cohort, right? Like, whether it's M&A advice or just like connections to people. There's sort of like different tiers within the post programs as well, where it's like we can give you concierge support and things like that. And so for all alumni around the world, you not only build your network locally, but you have access to the global network, right? 13,000 mentors worldwide. Now that doesn't mean all 13,000 are going to meet with you because you're a graduate. It just means that you have the ability to kind of search the network and be like, okay, I'm looking for this subject matter expert. Talk to Mike. Mike scours the network pretty much full time, so he knows a lot of it, and so do I. There's a lot of private alumni groups globally, and even here locally. You get $2 million in partner discounts. So what that means is like the Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platform, all these different credits and things that every startup founder needs to run a business. We either have a discount or it's free for depending on who the partner is. And there's like a bunch of like FI sessions and networking events. So when we did our 10-year party, we like invited all of our local grads, and it was a great time. So outside of just like the basic perks, there's also the Founder Lab program. If you want to talk a little bit more, I mean, we talked about Funding Lab, but kind of like some of the post-program stuff is Mike's specialty.
Yeah, basically my team and I interject at various inflection points in your business, right? So let's say that you're ready to scale because you figured out kind of what product market fit looks like, and you already have several customers. Then what my team and I will do is we'll try to find you more customers because obviously we have a bunch of partners that want to work with startups, but oftentimes those partners could be really good customers for you. For various reasons, right? So, for example, we'll work the network backwards, right? So that's one way we can do it. We help you with press and media. So just basically, if you have something that you want to share out, if we share it out on social media, we'll probably increase your reach by 10x. If we write a blog post about you, the SEO value in that is going to be tremendous, just because our site is very well SEO optimized, right? And so we use that a lot, for example, to help you close your financing round, or to help you, make that big splash and things like that, right? So we'll help you with that as well. So there's press, there's various business development opportunities, and we could talk about that as the program goes on. But yeah, we're there to help you through.
And we're also working on another program similar to Funding Lab, but it's called Traction Lab. So like if you're not ready to raise funding yet, well, you need to build a product, build a team, and get traction, right? So Traction Lab can help you get to that next level. It's not live yet. We're still working out the kinks and working through it, but we're hoping to get it live by the end of this year. So it's good timing for everyone. So let's talk a little bit about incorporation and join the equity collective. Then we'll take like a little break and do the working group. So we're very fortunate to be hosted here by Perkins Coie. Not only do they help give us free venue space, but also free food, they also give us probably one of the best incorporation packages that I've ever seen. we used to be partnered with Wilson Sonsini. I think like founders would pay $1,000 and they would get a $5,000 deferral, meaning that the company doesn't have to pay that $5,000 until they raise capital. But at Perkins, they've almost nearly doubled that, where the founders pay $1,000 up front for corporate formation. Most of that is used to just cover the filing fees with the government. And then Perkins gives you a $4,000 credit, so that's just free $4,000 worth of legal services, and then an additional $4,000 deferral. So you don't have to use Perkins Coie, but it's a really, really great deal. I highly recommend it. So if you do need to incorporate, they're one of the best here. So that's a little bit about incorporation. I don't want to dive too much into like the LLC versus C Corp versus S Corp, all that stuff. We have a whole session for that. If you want to set up office hours and talk about it, I'm happy to do it. I've incorporated all three. So we also, and this is more for international founders, we have legal partners like Perkins Coie in 180 cities around the world. So if you're opening a subsidiary or whatever right down the line, or if you want to incorporate a company in Hong Kong instead, we have legal partners in Hong Kong. I definitely recommend setting one up here though. So the Equity Collective is essentially our secret sauce to how we've scaled globally. I'm just going to skip up one step here. So around week 8 is when the founders join the Equity Collective. And that's where everyone signs a warrant that allows founders to purchase 4% of the company at fair market value at a point in the future. And so what we do with that is pretty special and interesting, right? No one else around the world does this. So we structure it so that 75% of any proceed or any exit that comes from that equity is not held by FI, but we give it back to the ecosystem, the people that helped launch that company. So out of the 4%, 1 percentage point goes to the founders, so the people that graduate the program. So if you graduate with 10 other companies in the program, you're going to have equity in 10 companies, which is pretty great because of just, it's sort of like building up your startup equity portfolio. It's equivalent to like a very early like angel investor. 1 percentage point is shared amongst the mentors. So the 40 or 50 mentors that are going to be cycling through the program, they're all going to share in 1 percentage point. 1% is split by the leaders, and 1% is split by HQ for running the program and doing the post-program stuff. And so here's how the warrant works, right? So it's essentially a 15 right to purchase shares. People have this misconception that they're giving up equity. Like, no, we literally have to buy it from you. That's how it works. Now, the fair market value, so we basically establish the price per share of the equity that we can buy and the number of shares based upon your first fundraising round. So right now, like, we could invest in your company, but there's no valuation. We don't know how much to buy the shares for. So when you go and raise a price round of $500K, $1 million, whatever it is, an investor is going to come in and say, okay, I'm going to give you $1 million, right? And this is a gross oversimplification. So, but I'm going to give you $1 million at a $4 million valuation, right? That sets the price per share, and our 4% is like based upon the number of shares at that point in time, times the price per share. That's how much money we have to invest in your company to acquire the shares. Now, what we want to happen is 8 to 10 years down the line, you're growing, you're building a great company. That $4 million valuation is now a $400 million valuation, right? And at that point, when you're about to exit, since we're on the cap table, you'll basically say, hey, Mike, we're about to sell our company to Microsoft. You guys should execute the warrant. So at that point, that's when we actually invest in the company and buy the shares. That's why it's a 15-year right. So we buy the shares, but by that time, that 4% actually is usually diluted down to around 2% of the company, because you're consistently growing the company, issuing more shares, and raising more rounds of capital. And so we buy the shares, and then we sell it to the acquirer, and then whatever the proceeds are, that's what we split amongst the cohort. So this is sort of like a way for us to share the upside with everyone who's part of the program, incentivize the mentors, incentivize the directors to help you not just in the 3 months, but also beyond that into your company's future. So here's some closing advice. The first is that, and I mentioned this earlier, but you're responsible for your own success. We're here to help, but we're not here to do the work for you. And if it's not a good time to do the work, that's totally fine, right? Like, we realize how hard it is to build a company. And so if you're not ready for it, that's totally fine, right? And you can always join in another semester. You can only grow if you're challenged. This is going to be a big challenge, but I've never once heard of a Founder Institute grad say it was not worth it. Right? I've never had one pissed off Founder Institute graduate. So everyone who graduates the program says it was amazing, really good experience, so glad I did it. And everything in FI is a test. And like I mentioned earlier, it also indicates future performance, right? So we're measuring things, we're measuring when you get things turned in on time. You know, essentially, as long as you keep up with the work and your ratings within the groups and the mentors are above the threshold, then you have nothing to worry about, right? But the main thing is just consistently keep up with the work, help each other through the program, because FI is designed to make you an elite founder with a world-class startup, and we want you to leverage the network to your own advantage. So with that said, let's just do some Q&A. I'm sure there's probably at least a couple questions. In the back, sorry, I'm still remembering everyone's name.
Mike?
Mike?
Yeah. So, how do you choose mentors for each?
We choose the mentors based upon the session. So usually for us, because we've been running for so long, it's usually based upon who's mentored before and who we know has like a really good talk on it. So Aaron usually does our vision session. Sometimes he'll do customer development or growth. This time he was available for vision, so he's going to do that as well as the two other mentors. So it's a little bit of like, we have this mentor list on the back end. We kind of know what their skill sets are. We interview them, we talk to them like, hey, what's your interest? What are you looking to mentor in? So we try to align those skill sets with whatever the topic is of the evening.
One of the cool things about FI is that everybody rates each other. So you're going to be rating your group members, you're going to be rating Ryan and I, you're going to be rating the mentors, right? And so if the mentor is consistently performing well over time, and since we've been running this cohort for a while, we have pretty good data on that. That also plays a big role into who we allow to come in and mentor.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. So every week, not only are the mentors going to be rating you, but you're going to rate the mentors as well. Now, if they give you a low score, do your best not to revenge rate them. It doesn't happen a lot, but I do see it. I'm just like, okay, this person's just being a little child. So, like, if it was helpful, if you thought like they gave good feedback, awesome. Like, you know, there's like different rating scales that you'll see in the back end. You know, rate Mike and I. Are we adding value? Is this helpful? Like, is there something we can do to improve? And also communicate with us. I usually don't look at what founders rate me, and I don't really look at what you do. And it's not that we don't care. It's just like, if you need something from us, like tell us, right? And we're here to help. So you know, the people that speak up and ask for the help are the ones that are going to get. So what other questions are there?
You mentioned that 3,600 businesses launched through FI. How many of them got funds through your network?
That's a good
Yeah,
question.
that's a good question. So it varies based on region, right? So for example, we operate in Afghanistan, right? It's pretty difficult to raise money in Afghanistan, just to be fair, right? Like, so, you know, here in Silicon Valley is pretty high. Something around like 30 to 50% of companies ultimately end up raising some kind of money. But if you're in a developing ecosystem, it's very difficult to raise money, right? So some of those companies just don't raise money and build those companies based on like revenue and things like that.
Let's say in Silicon Valley, last programs or last year, since last year, do you remember the percentage?
Yeah, I would say at somewhere between 30 to 40% of the companies have raised money, and some of the companies decided to forego that, to put that aside for a little while until they basically get a little bit more traction. So they're still open to that.
Great, thank you.
Other questions? Don't be shy.
Can you talk a little bit more about some of the other programs that come after the programs, and such as, like I saw on the slide, there was about Techstars or some of the other basically incubators and accelerators, and how that process works?
Yeah, so I work with the like of Techstars all the time, right? So we're the biggest feeder of companies in the Techstars. So some of you may decide that that's a good route for you, and if you want to go down that route, I'll facilitate an introduction to the right program for you and help you get to the top of the list, right? We also work with various other accelerators, 500 startups, like you name them, we probably have some sort of relationship, right? So it just depends on the founder. I would say the majority of the companies though that come through FI ultimately end up just growing right after FI and just taking the business to the next level. But sometimes there's some strategic value to go down that path, and so we deal with that on a case-by-case basis.
Other questions?
I have one more
Go ahead.
question.
Yeah.
You have a very powerful list of mentors, incredible list. And how should be the process? Let's say I would like to get a mentor advice from CEO or someone like high VIP people from Facebook, let's say. what should be the process? Should I reach out to that person, or should I ask you to connect us? How we can get relationship with that mentors?
So the mentors at FI are pretty friendly, and generally are kind of used to having founders reach out to them. Of course, they're busy and it might be difficult. The best thing you can do is to talk to the mentors while they're here, and getting their information there and using them. The second best thing is to figure out if it's the right time to meet that mentor. I can't tell you how many times I have a founder that's just like kind of working on an idea, and they're like, I want an intro to Elon Musk, and it's like Elon Musk literally can't help you, right? He can't help you with ideas, right? And you know, so part of that too is we also try to figure out if the timing's right to make that, and where that, because you might only get one shot at that person. In certain cases, with certain mentors, particularly the more famous they are, right, you might only get one shot, right? So we want to ensure that if that connection happens, there's maximum impact for you, right? And so we look at that too. But look, come to the session, meet with the people that are here, and then there's, you know, as the program goes on, Ryan and I will start to open up the network a little bit for you. You can also reach out to them as well, and they're used to giving
Thank you.
outreach.
Jordan, then James.
So folks that are looking for founders or looking to build a team, how are they supported?
In a couple, well, first of all, who here is looking for a co-founder? All right, keep your hand up. Out of you, who's looking for a technical co-founder? Okay, all right, wait, keep your hands up, keep your hands up. Okay. Those of you who are technical and you're interested in, like, a lot of people are here with their ideas, but easily, like, probably 1 to 2 times out of a program, and this is kind of more of a global average, but you know, founders will want to join forces. Like, oh, like I kind of like working with Jordan. I think his Jordan Ring idea is cool. Like, you know, but, oh, he needs a software developer. Well, I'm a software developer, and my idea kind of sucks. So maybe I should go join. So that does happen once or twice a semester, sometimes more. You put your hand down. So that's one, right? So like through the network, through each other, there's software engineers here, and even if they don't want to join your company because they're laser focused on their own, they know people. Right, so you really want to leverage the network. You know, is there anything? I mean, we could.
First of all, I've done this myself, right? So I was in your shoes with nobody and built out the team and raised money and all that. So I can give you plenty of advice on that process, on how to do it, and I can help you through that as well. So that's also part of something that I do. And you know, what I think you should do is create basically a funnel, and we'll talk about this later during our team session, but you should probably be talking to as many people as possible. Some people here might be a good fit, but there's also other events and things like that where you can meet other people too.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, which is ultimately finding a co-founder is really hard, right? The stars need to align. You have to get along with them. They have to have the right skill set, and they have to care enough about what you're doing and also believe enough in you as a leader to want to join you and work for free and do all this stuff, right? And so that's a pretty tall order, right? And even though like someone may have the right skill set, maybe they're not the right culture fit, or they don't, you know, want to do Facebook for dogs or whatever it is. And so I think like, you know, Mike's totally right. You got to beat the bushes. You got to go out there, talk to a lot of people, go to events. It's really a numbers game, right? Just like raising capital, right? You have to talk to somewhere between 100 and 150 investors to raise your seed or angel round. Like finding a co-founder is probably somewhere up there, right? In the same amount of members and contacts. So, James, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. If I know I'm going to miss 2 classes in the entire program, what should I do? For example,
just let us
I'm going to
know.
miss tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go to a funeral out of town and things like that.
Yeah, those things happen, and also like usually we're a little bit more strict like for the winter program, but I mean it's summer, like, you know, I just booked a trip to Hawaii and I'm, you know, going to be gone at part of the end of the program, right? So even I'm guilty of it. So just let us know, right? Give us a heads up and give your working group a heads up. We don't need like months advance notice, right? I mean, we record all the sessions, everything's going to be online. You're still expected to keep up with the work even if you're not here, but you can view the content and like just kind of catch up with your team and you know, get the information from them if you missed something. But for the most part, like there are a couple sessions I would definitely recommend not missing, but you know, it's up to you. And usually I would say like we sort of have this rule of don't miss more than 2 sessions, and it's not because like we want you there at every session. We do, but it's mainly because you're just not going to get the value, right? So you want to make sure you show up as much as possible.
So to piggyback on that, you should try to not miss any sessions. because a lot of the magic happens in this room and with the mentors and interaction and the various feedback that you get and meeting with everyone here, right? So you should do your best to come every session. But we get it.
Yeah. We actually, so at the very beginning of Founder Institute, we tried to launch virtually. Like, how do you reach thousands of people around the world? Like, oh, you do a virtual program, right? Where it's technology, it should be pretty easy. But it actually failed, and it failed pretty hard. And it wasn't so much that like people didn't take the program or want to do it, but like there's something special about being in a room with someone and building a relationship and actually having that network that you can't replicate online, or it's very hard to do. So come to the sessions as much as you can. I saw a couple other hands.
So finding a co-founder versus building a team, there's a balance to that, right? And how you give equity to each one of them. And do you necessarily need a co-founder or technical co-founder early on in the program? I feel like there'll be a lot more value added once you complete the program, and then you go look to either build your team. And are there strategies to build the teams and how you compensate them over time as well? Not give them equity early on and have some sort of a maybe milestones over time where they can invest those things, or?
Yeah, super good insights
So we
there.
deal with a lot of this during office hours because every situation is different, right? So this is one of those this is not a general answer that I can give. So you would set up office hours and we would discuss your personal situation and we would figure out what to do and what to do with each co-founder. Do you need a co-founder? No, that's a myth. I mean, it's just a myth. There's been plenty of really great companies that have been built without co-founders. Is it great to have a co-founder? Yes, but you shouldn't build it because like some investor says that I like investing in teams with co-founders. That's actually kind of counterintuitive, right? Because that's actually worse. It's kind of like, getting married in Vegas and like, oh, this is great, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. And then the whole company falls apart, right? And so you just don't want to do that, right? So it's oftentimes it's better to tread lightly on that and date for a very long time before you basically give somebody that type of role in the company.
It's very true. But to answer your question, there are a lot of different strategies you can employ, right? Different titles and equity splits, and it really depends on your situation. But that's a really good question. In the back, what was your name again? Yvonne?
Yeah, I just want to ask you, you said that you have 4% and that you have the right to buy the shares. But if I understood correctly, you said that you kind of pretty much can determine the price of those shares?
No, the investors do. So whoever invests in your first fundraising round, they set the valuation, which is the price per share, and then we basically, that's when our warrant is triggered, and that's what we can then buy the shares for. So it's called your first qualified financing, but basically like whatever those investors paid for a price per share, that's what we also have to pay if we want to buy the shares from the company.
So do you, do you do it like the first Series A, or you just try to wait?
We just wait. Yeah, because if you think about it from our perspective, it's more strategic to wait. It's like, we could spend $500,000 to invest in your Series A, but there's still a risk you might fail, right? And so the goal of this isn't because we want power or shares or things like that. We don't want controlling interest. We just simply want the benefit of an exit to then deliver that benefit back to the network, right? And so for us, we basically wait until an exit or liquidity event is imminent, and then that's when we buy the shares.
At our scale, we can manage equity like that. Right, there's 3,600 companies. So for some of you that actually have some experience with this, I would assume a lot of people don't. Once you become a shareholder in a company, then you're always having to sign stuff. Like, oh, I need this approval for this. I need this approval. It could be a very little thing. I want to just add a little bit more shares to the company, whatever. Right? Now imagine doing that for like 3,600 companies. It's just really difficult, right? This is why we use a warrant structure. So for those of you who don't understand what a warrant is, you give employees stock options, you give businesses warrants. Okay, it's the same concept, right? It's just for business, right? So basically, this is an option.
Follow to that question. How does a 15-year equity collective, which is right now at 4%, get diluted to 2% after 15 years?
Because generally what happens is when you raise more money, if you raise more money. If you don't raise money, then it won't get diluted. Right? But what happens when you raise money, investors buy more and more of a percentage of your company. So when you do multiple rounds of financing, it's not uncommon for us to basically have half of the percent that we had initially.
And same with the founder. right? Like
Yeah,
over time,
everybody.
everyone gets diluted over time just by the nature of how investing works.
So the minimum period is about 15 years, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, to get for a company for a private company to have an exit, like whether it's like IPO or you know, some kind of acquisition, usually it's like 8-year kind of minimum, sometimes like 7, sometimes less if it's like
These days it's
acquired.
longer and longer.
It's getting much longer.
Right, so right now it's like 10 to 12 years on average.
Yeah, especially if you're going the IPO route.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Now the question is, piggyback on that answer, is that what's the percentage of, I mean, how often do you guys actually follow through on your warrant exercise in the risk 600 company portfolio that you manage today? So for example, is it like, you know, we had this many incidences where actually trigger warrant or bought shares, or is it percentage number, or what, anything
So
that?
whenever somebody gets acquired, basically,
Right.
because this is the easiest way to explain it. Whenever somebody gets acquired, we
Right.
do that.
Okay, makes
So
sense.
whenever there's one, and we have multiple of those every year, just because of our scale, it just happens
Okay.
all the time.
Other questions? Going once, going twice. You can ask more questions later. Go ahead, Jax. Right?
Yes. Can you explain a little bit, and I feel like you're probably gonna cover this after the break, but about the working groups and
Sure.
what kind of, you mentioned assignments, are these the assignments that are assigned to us individually for our projects and then we're talking to each other for advice? Is that how that works?
Yeah, basically. Think of it as your support group, right?
Okay.
They're your team. Everyone's working on their own individual projects. We generally split up co-founders on purpose because there's value in like having one co-founder in one team and another in a separate team, so that you're not just meeting the same people, but you're actually getting more feedback, and that leads to better outcomes. But yeah, so there's a good transition because we're about to go into the working group part. So here's basically how the working groups work, right? So as I mentioned, you're gonna meet twice a week, once virtually, once in person. You know, I would just say for logistics, like, you know, it's good to meet before the session. How many people here have been to our office? Wow. Okay, so probably for like events, over half you. Okay. So right next to our office is a place called Corner Bakery. It's a good spot. They got lots of room to like meet and stuff. It's a good meeting spot. So like if you want to beat the traffic, you know, Wednesday evenings you can meet, you know, your working group or teammates like I don't know, 4 o'clock or whatever time at Corner Bakery, and then it's like a 5-minute drive up here. Generally, I think they don't really open the doors to us here until around 6, but you could certainly try and meet here before or hang out in the parking lot or whatever you want. But I would say like it's better to meet at Corner Bakery first. And so the things that you'll be doing in the working group, and I'll get into the president role really quickly, is so everyone's working on their own company. You're all going to be doing essentially the same assignments, but for your own companies every week. And there's going to be times where you're like, maybe I don't understand this assignment, or maybe there's something that I have like a question with. So your first like kind of order of operation is to talk with your team and say, hey, does anyone know like someone who can help me with this, or does anyone have like any insight as to how I could better answer this question? So you're going to be working with each other to just kind of help guide each other, right? Then if the team doesn't know, they're going to kick that up to the president of the team, and the president's going to be like, oh, okay, like I think this means that. And if the president doesn't know, then the president will come and ask Mike or I, and we'll try to give you some clarification. So we want to try and like answer things at the lowest level possible to keep the cycles basically very fast, right? Because the program moves quickly. Now in the working groups, basically you kind of just go over like some things that you need help with, right? So there's not a whole lot of structure. Like we don't like require you to do anything in the working group. It's basically like meet, talk about the progress, talk about the program and the curriculum and the different things that you're doing each week, and if you need some support with it. And then the president role is sort of unique. It's actually fairly easy to be a president, but you know the president's job is essentially to get everyone to graduation, right? So we're really looking for strong leaders who want to help lead teams. It's also great practice. Like you don't get extra credit or anything for that. Again, it's not school, but you know the presidents are kind of taking the notes, and then in their profile they'll post the working group notes so that the teams they're basically reporting on like the progress and anything, and we have access to that, so we can kind of check and see like, okay, how's Team Red doing, right? Is there anything we need to know? And then it also saves us so you can go back and report on it later. So, you know, outside of that, you know, we also recommend electing a vice president. Like, and again, these titles are kind of like a little too extravagant for what you're trying to do. But it basically, like, if the president's sick or something happens, like, okay, there's another leader in the group. And again, it's not super formal. but it's very important because we've done a lot of research, and it turns out if you have a strong leader running the working group, then at least the better outcomes and higher graduation rates among the founders. So if you're interested in the leadership position, that's actually what we're going to go over right now. So let's do this. Let's take basically a 15-minute break, right? But in that break, you can use the restroom, grab some more pizza, and then why don't we just kind of split up into the different rooms? There's a couple different working rooms. So if you're the red team, why don't you go in the room that's kind of back over here on the right behind the pizza wall. Green team and pink team, you guys can hang out here, and then blue and gray, we can go on that side. And then there are a couple people who joined last minute that I didn't get to put into a working group, so you're team orange. So why don't you come up and talk to me? We'll resume in about 15 minutes or so. Just elect who the leader is going to be, and then come and tell us who that is.